The Rise of the French Empire, a Conquest Community documentary. Brought to you by Kitty Enterprise. In the vast world of the Conquest Community, where nations rise and fall through diplomacy and war, one empire stands as a symbol of resilience, strategy, and ambition: France. From its humble origins to its expansion across the community, the French Empire has experienced glorious victories, bitter defeats, and internal struggles that have shaped its destiny. But what led to its creation? Who were the key figures behind its rise? And what does the future hold for this empire? Origins of an empire. The story of the French Empire begins in the early days of the Conquest Community, when the game was still growing and its first nations were forming. At the time, the community had fewer than 1,000 members, and many sought to establish their place in this virtual world of conquest and diplomacy. One interaction changed everything. A man known as Masséna, also called French Darjeeling, suggested the idea, believing that a leader with such a strong connection to France should take up the mantle. Inspired by this conversation, the foundation of the French Empire was laid. What started as a simple gathering of friends soon evolved into a fully structured nation. But it wasn't just the idea of France that took root. The leader had been a high-ranking figure in Vanguard Impériale, a prestigious faction specializing in strategy and discipline. This experience fueled the dream of creating a military force unlike any other. Thus, with a handful of close allies and an ambitious vision, the French Empire was officially registered as a nation in the Conquest Community. What made France unique? Unlike other nations, France was not just a military force. It was a community built on trust, dedication, and camaraderie. While many nations existed merely as loose groups of players, France stood apart by investing time in meticulous battle strategies and war discussions. Every victory was earned through careful planning, every defeat analyzed for future improvements. Beyond strategy, France was defined by its unity. Game nights, shared experiences, and bonds forged in the heat of battle created a culture of loyalty. Only a few nations, such as Sweden, matched this level of strategic and social engagement, making France a unique force in the community. Key figures of the empire. Every empire is shaped by its leaders, and France was no exception. These individuals carried the nation through its victories and defeats, leaving a lasting impact on its legacy. Masséna, the architect of ASOC, the foundation that allowed France to dominate its rivals. His strategic brilliance played a key role in France's rise to power. Poodles, a legendary commander of the Guard, France's elite fighting force. Under his leadership, the Garde remained undefeated in all three of its deployments, though it would later be left as an unused reserve, a decision that would have lasting consequences. Jack Sparrow and Bunny, the revivalists of French military power. At a time when France struggled, these two leaders carried the nation through victories and defeats, rebuilding its military strength across multiple regions. The Emperor, the strategist, who transformed France's military structure, orchestrating victories and reinforcing the nation's strength. However, his leadership was tested during the war against Japan, where France suffered both triumphs and defeats. Battles and wars. The history of France is one of conflict, where every battle shaped its legacy. Some were great victories, others crushing defeats, but all played a role in defining the empire's resilience. The first Japanese encounter, a major victory, utilizing the elite guard and premier corps, setting the stage for France's dominance. the Second and Third Japanese encounters. Further victories that solidified France's reputation as a formidable force. The Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Japanese battles, a turning point, as losses mounted, testing France's ability to recover. The Prussian Wars, a series of sweeping victories against Prussia, showcasing France's tactical superiority. The Papal States conflicts, friendly but important battles, securing France's influence in the region. With each battle, France proved its strength, but not every war could be won. Challenges and internal struggles. Ruling an empire is no easy task. France's greatest challenges were not only on the battlefield, but within its own ranks. The rapid growth of the nation made administration difficult, with over 100 new members joining in just 2 days. Within weeks, France became the fastest-growing nation in the community. Internal disputes tested the unity of the leadership. Trust issues within the high command led to conflicts, though they were ultimately resolved without major consequences. The only rebellion France faced came from within its own people, an attempt to create a rival French empire. However, diplomacy prevailed, and the rebels eventually rebranded as Rome, ending the conflict peacefully. Diplomacy and alliances. War may define an empire, but diplomacy secures its survival. Throughout its history, France relied on strategic alliances and negotiations to strengthen its position in the conquest community. While many nations waged war recklessly, France understood that careful diplomacy could achieve what brute force could not. France's diplomatic approach was both pragmatic and necessary. The empire rarely had fixed allies or enemies. Its stance changed depending on what was needed for survival and expansion. However, the Second and Third coalitions marked a turning point, as several nations turned against France in an effort to weaken its influence. Allies, Rome at certain points, smaller neutral factions, enemies, Sweden, Holland, and Rome, later conflicts. Sweden became a long-term rival, viewing itself as the guardian of the conquest community, standing against French influence. Holland followed suit, aligning with Rome to counter French expansion. These tensions escalated into full-scale conflicts, forcing France into a defensive and strategic position. Treaties and agreements. While France fought fiercely, not every war ended in victory. The Great War of the Third Coalition became a defining moment in the empire's history. In the aftermath of this large-scale conflict, France was forced to cede territories in Spain, Italy, and the Netherlands. Although the loss was not catastrophic, it marked a shift in France's approach. The empire would have to rebuild, rethink its strategies, and focus on internal growth before engaging in further expansion. Reforms and evolution. To maintain its strength, France needed to evolve. Over time, its command structure and community policies were refined, allowing for greater organization and efficiency. These changes helped France adapt to the ever-shifting landscape of the conquest community. The nation's ability to evolve ensured its continued relevance and influence. The future of France. One thing is certain: the French Empire has already carved its name into history. Its story is one of ambition, resilience, and strategy. And while the future remains unwritten, one phrase echoes across the conquest community: